This is not just another morning. This is Friday, May 2026, a divine turning point, a prophetic gateway into a brand new month. And I need you to hear me clearly. Every plan the enemy whispered, every trap that was set in secret, every assignment formed against your destiny, today we confront it and today we cancel it by fire. I feel a spiritual urgency in this moment because the beginning of a month is not neutral. It is a battlefield of decisions, declarations, and dominion. What you permit now can follow you, but what you cancel now cannot survive. And I declare that you did not stumble into this prayer by accident. You were summoned by purpose, positioned by divine orchestration to take authority over May before May tries to take authority over you. Some of you came into this new month carrying residue from the last delays, disappointments, silent battles nobody knows about. But I came with an assignment to tell you that it ends here, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Because when you open your mouth in alignment with heaven, you don't beg for victory, you enforce it. There are plans that were written against your name, plans of stagnation, plans of confusion, plans designed to wear you out slowly, but we are not negotiating with darkness today. We are issuing a cancellation notice in the spirit realm. And when God backs your words, no force can override your authority. I need you to understand something. Warfare is not noise, it is precision. It is knowing who you are, knowing what belongs to you, and refusing to allow anything unauthorized to remain. And this morning we step into that precision. We speak with clarity, we move with power, we stand with confidence. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something powerful, like this video and subscribe to this channel for daily prayer as a prophetic act of faith. Because when you align your actions with expectation, you signal to heaven that you are ready for consistency, ready for breakthrough, ready for divine interruption in your life. I sense that some of you have been targeted because of what you carry, your potential, your calling, your future impact. But hear me, what God placed inside of you is not vulnerable, it is guarded. And today we reinforce that covering. We strengthen that hedge. We declare that no evil plan will survive this new month. This is not the month you shrink back. This is the month you rise with authority. This is the month you walk into rooms with confidence, knowing that every unseen battle has already been addressed in the spirit. You are not reacting, you are ruling. So right now, I want you to make a bold prophetic move. Open the comment section and type, "Every evil plan is canceled this month," not as a routine, but as a declaration that echoes beyond the screen into realms where decisions about your life are being contested and overturned. This new month is not something I drift into casually. It is something I step into intentionally, with awareness, with spiritual clarity, with a deep knowing that time itself can be governed by what I declare and what I align with. Friday, May 2026 is not just a date on a calendar. It is a doorway, a prophetic entrance, a moment designed by God where decisions in the spirit can shape outcomes in the natural. And I refuse to enter this month passively. I refuse to carry over what God never assigned to me. I refuse to give permission to anything that does not belong to my destiny. I step in with authority, not arrogance but alignment, not fear but faith, not confusion but clarity, knowing that when I move in agreement with heaven, heaven moves in agreement with me. I become aware in this moment that beginnings matter, that what is spoken at the start can echo throughout the days that follow, that what is established now can either empower me or limit me. And so I slow my spirit, I quiet every internal distraction, and I position myself in divine awareness. I recognize that there are plans that exist in realms I cannot see, whispers of intention that were not sent by God, strategies formed in darkness that attempt to influence my path, but I am not unaware, I am not unprepared, and I am not unprotected. Because I carry the authority that comes from being aligned with God, and I choose to exercise that authority right now. I declare that I am not entering May as a victim of circumstance. I am entering as a steward of purpose. I do not wait for things to happen to me. I establish what is allowed to happen through me and around me. Every plan that was written without divine approval, every agenda that was formed outside of God's will, every intention that seeks to derail, distract, or diminish what God has placed inside of me, I confront it at the entrance of this month. I do not negotiate with it. I do not entertain it. I cancel it. I release a divine interruption into every unseen plan. And I declare that what was formed in darkness cannot survive in the light of God's authority. The word reminds me in Isaiah 54, 17, that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I do not read that as passive comfort. I receive it as active authority. That means even if something was formed, even if something was designed, even if something was prepared, it will not succeed, it will not advance, it will not complete its assignment. And I align myself with that truth right now. I declare that every weapon loses its power, every scheme loses its influence, every plan loses its access. I stand under divine covering, and I walk into this month with a shield that cannot be penetrated and a confidence that cannot be shaken. I recognize that authority is not about volume. It is about alignment. It is not about how loud I speak. It is about how deeply I believe. And so I settle into a calm, steady, unwavering posture. I am not rushing. I am not anxious. I am not reacting. I am responding from a place of identity, knowing who I am and whose I am. And from that place, I release declarations that carry weight in the spirit. I declare that this month will not be shaped by fear. It will not be influenced by confusion. It will not be governed by negativity. It will be shaped by purpose, influenced by divine wisdom, and governed by the presence of God. There may have been things that tried to follow me from the previous month, patterns that attempted to repeat, cycles that attempted to continue, but I draw a clear line at this entrance. What does not belong to my future cannot cross into my present. What was assigned to hinder me cannot continue to accompany me. I release every residue, every weight, every unseen attachment that tries to linger, and I step forward lighter, clearer, freer. I do not carry what God has already broken. I do not entertain what God has already canceled. I do not revisit what God has already closed. The word declares in Revelation 3:8 that God sets before me an open door that no one can shut, and I hold on to that promise as I enter this month. That means access is already granted, opportunities are already positioned, pathways are already prepared. And if God has opened it, no opposing force can close it. So I align my expectation with that truth. I do not enter this month expecting resistance. I enter expecting alignment. I do not anticipate obstacles. I anticipate opportunities. I do not prepare for defeat. I prepare for manifestation. There is a calm confidence rising within me, a quiet strength that does not need to prove itself, but simply knows. I know that I am covered. I know that I am guided. I know that I am positioned. And because of that, I move differently. I think differently. I speak differently. I no longer give energy to what I have already canceled. I no longer give attention to what no longer has authority. I focus on what God is doing, on what God is establishing, on what God is releasing in this new month. And even now, I sense that something is shifting, something is aligning, something is being reordered in ways I may not fully see yet, but I can feel. There is a divine rearrangement happening, a repositioning that is setting me up for what is ahead. And I remain in agreement with that process. I do not resist it. I do not question it. I flow with it because I trust that God's timing, God's order, and God's intention for my life is always greater than anything that tries to oppose it. If this resonates with your spirit, if you are stepping into this new month with the same authority and alignment, I want you to take a moment and open the comment section and type, "I entered this move with authority." Let that be your personal declaration, your written agreement, your visible act of faith that seals what you are believing for and positions you to witness what God is about to establish in your life. I continue to stand in this awareness that this moment matters, that this declaration carries weight, that this alignment has consequences in the best possible way. I am not just speaking words. I am setting direction. I am not just praying. I am establishing order. I am not just hoping. I am declaring with confidence that every evil agenda is canceled, every unauthorized plan is denied, and every step I take in this month is covered, guided, and aligned with divine purpose. I become aware in this moment that delay is not always loud. It is often subtle, patient, and persistent, attempting to slow progress in ways that are almost unnoticeable at first. It disguises itself as timing issues, as missed opportunities, as doors that almost opened but didn't fully release. But I refuse to accept delay as my portion in this new month. I refuse to normalize stagnation. I refuse to make peace with cycles that keep me in the same place, and I refuse to carry forward any pattern that was never authorized by God. I step into this moment with clarity, recognizing that forward movement is my inheritance, that progress is my portion, and that anything attempting to restrict that must be confronted and canceled. There are things that tried to slow me down before, Moments where I felt like I was moving but not advancing, trying but not breaking through, pushing but not progressing. And I acknowledge those experiences without allowing them to define my expectation. Because what was does not determine what will be. I draw a clear boundary between past limitations and present authority. I release every agreement I may have unconsciously made with delay, every thought that told me to wait when God said move, every hesitation that held me back when purpose was calling me forward. I break alignment with stagnation, and I realign myself with acceleration. The word reminds me in Habakkuk 2:3 that though the vision tarries, it will surely come, it will not delay. And I receive that not as a distant promise, but as a present reality. That means what God has spoken over my life is not subject to indefinite postponement. It is not at the mercy of circumstances. It is not dependent on external approval. It is anchored in divine timing, and divine timing is precise, intentional, and unstoppable. So I align myself with that precision. I refuse to interpret waiting as denial, and I refuse to interpret delay as defeat. I recognize that what God has set in motion is still in motion, and I step into agreement with its fulfillment. I declare that every hidden plan of delay is exposed and dismantled. Every unseen force attempting to slow my progress loses its influence. Every pattern of stagnation that has tried to establish itself in my life is broken at its root. I do not negotiate with it. I do not tolerate it. I do not allow it to linger. I release a decisive cancellation into every delay that has tried to follow me, and I declare that it has no place in this new month. I move forward with clarity, with confidence, and with an awareness that progress is not something I chase, it is something I walk in. There is a shift happening within me, a recalibration of expectation, a renewal of mindset. I no longer expect things to take longer than they should. I no longer anticipate resistance at every step. I no longer prepare myself for disappointment as a default. I align my thinking with the nature of God, who is not slow, who is not uncertain, who is not hesitant. And as I align my thinking, my experience begins to align as well. I step into a flow where things begin to move, where doors begin to open, where connections begin to form, where opportunities begin to present themselves in ways that reflect divine order rather than human limitation. The word declares in Joel 2:25 that God will restore the years that the locust has eaten, and I hold on to that restoration as I move forward. That means nothing was wasted. Nothing was lost beyond recovery. Nothing was taken beyond redemption. Every delay, every setback, every moment that felt like it was slipping away is now being gathered into a process of restoration, and I step into that restoration with expectation. I do not look back with regret. I look forward with confidence, knowing that what is being restored will not only return, but will come back with increase, with multiplication, with acceleration. I become intentional about how I move in this season. I do not rush, but I do not hesitate. I do not force, but I do not hold back. I move with a steady, consistent, focused energy that is aligned with purpose. I pay attention to what God is highlighting. I respond to what God is initiating, and I trust the process that God is unfolding. I am no longer distracted by what is not working. I am focused on what is aligning. I am no longer discouraged by what has not happened yet. I am encouraged by what is already in motion. There is also a release happening in my spirit, a letting go of frustration, a releasing of impatience, a surrendering of the need to control timing. Because I understand that true acceleration does not come from striving, it comes from alignment. When I am aligned with God's will, things move the way they are supposed to move. And so I rest in that alignment even as I move forward. I am active but not anxious, engaged but not overwhelmed, focused but not pressured. I carry a calm confidence that knows things are unfolding exactly as they should. I also recognize that momentum builds through consistency, through small intentional steps taken in the right direction. And so I commit to showing up, to moving forward, to taking action even when it feels simple, even when it feels small, because I understand that every step taken in alignment contributes to a greater flow of progress. I do not wait for perfect conditions. I move with present clarity. I do not wait for everything to make sense. I trust what has been revealed and I act on it. If you are in agreement with this shift, if you are ready to break every pattern of delay and step into unstoppable momentum, I want you to open the comment section and type, "No more delay. My time is now." Let that be your declaration, your alignment, your visible agreement with the authority you are stepping into. And as you type it, You reinforce it within yourself and release it into the atmosphere around you. I continue to stand in this posture of authority, this awareness of alignment, this confidence in divine timing. I do not look at what tried to slow me down. I look at what is now moving me forward. I do not focus on what resisted me. I focus on what is now responding to my alignment. I step into this new month with a clear understanding that delay has been canceled, stagnation has been broken, and progress is not only possible, it is inevitable. As I continue to move in agreement with God's purpose and timing, I become aware in this moment that the battlefield is often internal before it is ever external, that what tries to disturb my peace does not always come from outside, but can rise within as thoughts, emotions, and subtle pressures that attempt to shift my focus and weaken my clarity. And I refuse to allow my mind to become a place of confusion. I refuse to allow my peace to be negotiated. I refuse to allow my emotions to be controlled by anything that is not aligned with God. I step into a place of calm authority where my mind is steady, my heart is anchored, and my spirit is aligned with truth. There have been moments where thoughts tried to crowd in, where worry attempted to take root, where overthinking created noise that made it difficult to hear clearly. But I recognize that not every thought deserves my attention, not every feeling deserves my agreement, and not every internal voice deserves to be believed. I take authority over my mind. I become intentional about what I entertain, and I begin to filter everything through the truth of who I am and what God has spoken over me. The word reminds me in 2 Timothy 1:7 that God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And I receive that fully, not as something distant, but as something present within me right now. That means fear does not belong here. Confusion does not belong here. Instability does not belong here. What belongs here is power. What belongs here is love. What belongs here is a mind that is clear, focused, and disciplined. And I align myself with that reality. I declare that every attack against my peace is dismantled. Every attempt to disturb my inner stability is canceled. Every wave of anxiety, every trace of fear, every form of mental pressure that tries to rise against me is brought into alignment with truth. I do not allow it to grow. I do not allow it to linger. I do not allow it to define my state. I release calm into my mind. I release clarity into my thoughts. I release stability into my emotions. I create an environment within me where peace is not occasional, it is consistent. I also become aware that my focus is powerful, that what I give my attention to grows in influence. And so I become intentional about where my focus goes. I do not dwell on what could go wrong. I dwell on what God is doing right. I do not fixate on uncertainty. I fix my attention on truth. I do not replay negative scenarios. I rehearse positive outcomes that are aligned with purpose. My focus becomes a tool that I use to strengthen my clarity rather than weaken my confidence. The word declares in Isaiah 26:3 that God will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on him. And I hold on to that promise as I align my thoughts. That means peace is not random. It is the result of focus. When my mind is centered, when my thoughts are aligned, when my attention is directed toward God, peace becomes the natural outcome. And so I train my mind to return to that center again and again, no matter what tries to pull me away. There is a calm strength that begins to settle within me, a quiet confidence that does not depend on external conditions, but is rooted in internal alignment. I am not shaken by what I see. I am not overwhelmed by what I hear. I am not disturbed by what I feel. I remain steady, grounded, anchored. And from that place, I make decisions, I take action, I move forward with clarity. I do not rush because I am anxious. I move because I am aligned. I also recognize that emotional stability is not about suppressing what I feel. It is about understanding it without being controlled by it. I allow myself to process, to reflect, to acknowledge, but I do not allow my emotions to take the lead. I lead with truth. I lead with clarity. I lead with purpose. My emotions follow my alignment. They do not dictate my direction. And as I practice this, I become more grounded, more balanced, more centered in who I am. There may have been times where confusion tried to cloud my judgment, where uncertainty made decisions feel difficult, where doubt tried to creep in quietly. But I address that directly. I reject confusion. I reject doubt. I reject every form of mental fog that tries to obscure my vision. I declare that my mind is clear, that my thoughts are ordered, that my decisions are guided. I trust the clarity that God is providing, and I move forward with confidence. If this resonates with you, If you are ready to take authority over your mind and walk in peace and clarity, I want you to gently open the comment section and type, "My mind is clear and at peace." Let that be your declaration, your moment of agreement, your intentional step toward reinforcing what you are choosing to walk in. Because when you put it into words, you strengthen it within yourself. I continue to remain in this state of calm awareness, this steady alignment, this quiet confidence that knows I am not at the mercy of my thoughts. I am the steward of them. I choose what I think. I choose what I believe. I choose what I focus on, and as I make those choices in alignment with truth, my peace becomes unshakable, my clarity becomes consistent, and my focus becomes a powerful force that directs my life in a way that reflects purpose, stability, and divine alignment. I become aware in this moment that my financial life is not separate from my spiritual alignment, that provision is not random, and that lack is not something I am designed to accept as normal. There are patterns that try to define how far I can go, limits that attempt to suggest what is possible and what is not. But I refuse to accept any limitation that did not come from God. I recognize that provision has a source, and that source is not uncertainty, not fear, not human systems alone, but God Himself, who is consistent, faithful, and intentional about meeting every need. And so I align myself with that source. I align my thinking, my expectations, and my declarations with the reality of divine provision. There may have been moments where lack felt close, where resources felt stretched, where opportunities seemed limited, but I do not allow those moments to define my identity or my future. I do not internalize scarcity. I do not agree with insufficiency. I do not build my expectations around what is missing. Instead, I shift my awareness toward what is possible when I am aligned with God's provision. I begin to see differently, to think differently, to expect differently. I recognize that what I focus on grows, and so I choose to focus on provision rather than lack, on opportunity rather than limitation, on increase rather than restriction. The word reminds me in Philippians 4:19 that God will supply all my needs according to His riches in glory, and I receive that as a present truth. That means I am not dependent on uncertain sources. I am connected to a source that does not run out, that does not fluctuate, that does not fail. Every need I have is already known, already accounted for, already provided for in ways that may not yet be visible, but are already in motion. And I align my expectation with that truth. I do not worry about how, I trust who, I do not stress about when. I remain in alignment with what God is doing. I declare that every cycle of financial struggle is broken. Every pattern of lack that has tried to repeat itself loses its hold. Every mindset of scarcity that has tried to influence my decisions is replaced with a mindset of abundance. I do not carry forward any limitation that was not assigned to me. I release every belief that says there is not enough, that opportunities are limited, that provision is uncertain. I replace those beliefs with truth, with clarity, with confidence in God's ability to provide in ways that go beyond what I can calculate or predict. There is also a shift happening in how I see opportunity. I begin to recognize that opportunities are not always obvious, that sometimes they come in forms that require discernment, attention, and willingness to act. And so I position myself to be aware, to be attentive, to be ready. I do not overlook what God is placing in front of me. I do not hesitate when clarity is given. I do not delay when action is required. I move with wisdom, with discernment, with a readiness that aligns with the flow of provision. The word declares in Deuteronomy 8:18 that it is God who gives me the power to get wealth, and I hold on to that understanding as I move forward. That means my ability, my creativity, my ideas, my strategies are not random. They are empowered. There is a capacity within me that is designed to produce, to create, to generate, to multiply. And I begin to recognize and activate that capacity. I do not underestimate what I carry. I do not overlook the potential within me. I do not dismiss the ideas that come to me. I pay attention, I develop them, I act on them with wisdom and consistency. There is also a discipline that comes with alignment, a responsibility that comes with provision. I become intentional about how I manage what I receive, how I steward what is placed in my hands, how I make decisions that reflect wisdom rather than impulse. I understand that provision is not just about receiving, it is about managing, multiplying, and aligning with purpose. And so I bring order into my financial life. I remove confusion. I remove disorder. I remove any habit that does not support growth and stability. I replace it with clarity, with structure, with intentional action. I also release any fear connected to finances, any anxiety about the future, any pressure that tries to create urgency without clarity. I understand that fear disrupts flow, that anxiety clouds judgment, that pressure can lead to misaligned decisions. And so I choose calm, I choose clarity, I choose alignment. I trust that as I remain aligned with God, I will be guided into the right opportunities, the right decisions, the right connections that support growth and provision. There is an expansion happening, not just externally, but internally. My thinking is expanding. My expectations are expanding. My capacity is expanding. I no longer think in terms of just enough. I think in terms of overflow. I no longer focus on survival. I focus on growth. I no longer limit what is possible based on past experiences. I align with what God is able to do. And as my thinking expands, my actions begin to reflect that expansion. I step into new opportunities. I explore new ideas. I move with confidence into spaces that align with increase. If you are in agreement with this shift, if you are ready to break every cycle of lack and step into provision and overflow, I want you to gently open the comment section and type, "I walk in divine provision." Let that be your declaration, your agreement, your intentional step of faith that reinforces what you are choosing to align with. And as you type it, you create a moment of clarity that strengthens your expectation and positions you to recognize what God is releasing into your life. I continue to remain in this alignment, this awareness that provision is not distant, it is present, that opportunities are not limited, they are available, that increase is not impossible, it is already in motion. I move forward with confidence, with clarity, with a calm assurance that my needs are met, that my path is supported, and that everything required for my life and purpose is being provided in ways that reflect divine wisdom, divine timing, and divine abundance. I become aware in this moment that words carry weight far beyond what is heard in the natural, that every word spoken, whether in public or in secret, has the potential to shape outcomes, influence direction, and create alignment either with truth or with distortion. And I refuse to allow any word that was not aligned with God to have authority over my life. I refuse to give power to anything that was spoken from negativity, fear, jealousy, or misunderstanding. I recognize that not every voice deserves access, not every statement deserves agreement, and not every declaration deserves to remain active in my life. I take my position with calm authority, and I begin to address every word that has tried to attach itself to my identity, my future, and my purpose. There have been words spoken that attempted to define me, to limit me, to reduce what God has placed inside of me. Words that tried to create doubt, words that tried to introduce fear, words that attempted to establish boundaries where God had given freedom. And even if those words were spoken casually, even if they were spoken in passing, I recognize that they do not have permission to remain. I do not carry them forward. I do not replay them. I do not internalize them. I release them completely, and I remove their influence from my thinking, from my emotions, and from my expectations. The word reminds me in Proverbs 18:21 that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and I understand that this is not symbolic. It is practical. It is active. It is real. That means words have the ability to build or to break, to release or to restrict, to align or to misalign, and I choose to align myself with life. I choose to align myself with words that build, that strengthen, that clarify, that empower. I do not allow words of death, words of limitation, words of negativity to have any place in my life. I declare that every negative word spoken against me is reversed. Every curse, every harmful declaration, every statement that was designed to weaken or to hinder is rendered powerless. I do not accept it. I do not agree with it. I do not allow it to remain active. I release a canceling into every word that does not align with God's truth. I neutralize its effect. I dismantle its influence. I remove its access. And in its place, I release words of truth, words of clarity, words of life that align with who I am and where I am going. I also become aware of the words I have spoken over myself, the internal dialogue that has been repeated, sometimes without even realizing it. And I take responsibility for that. I recognize that my own words carry power, that what I say about myself can either align me with truth or pull me away from it. And so I begin to shift that internal dialogue. I replace every negative statement with a positive one, every limiting belief with an empowering truth. every doubt-filled thought with a confident declaration. I become intentional about speaking life over myself, over my situation, over my future. The word declares in Isaiah 55:11 that God's word will not return void, but will accomplish what it is sent to do, and I align myself with that principle. That means when I speak in agreement with God's word, those words carry effectiveness, they carry purpose, they carry the ability to produce results. And so I fill my words with alignment, with truth, with intention. I speak what I want to see. I declare what I am aligning with. I release words that support the direction I am moving in. There is also a quiet confidence that begins to rise as I become more aware of the power of my words. I no longer speak casually about my life. I no longer make light of what I say. I no longer allow negativity to slip through without correction. I speak with awareness, with intention, with alignment. My words become consistent with my purpose, consistent with my direction, consistent with what I am building. I understand that every word is a seed, and I become intentional about the seeds I plant. I also recognize that there may be words that were spoken in moments of emotion, in times of frustration, in situations where clarity was not present. And I address those as well. I release them, I cancel them, I refuse to allow them to continue producing results that do not align with truth. I replace them with new declarations, with corrected statements, with aligned words that reflect what I truly want to see. I do not remain bound to what was spoken in a moment of weakness. I step into what I can declare from a place of strength and clarity. There is a shift happening in how I listen as well. I become more discerning about the voices I allow into my life, the conversations I engage with, the environments I place myself in. I recognize that what I hear influences what I think, and what I think influences what I say. And so I become selective. I become intentional. I become aware. I surround myself with words that build, that encourage, that align with truth. I reduce exposure to negativity, to doubt, to anything that attempts to pull me away from clarity and confidence. If you are in agreement with this alignment, if you are ready to cancel every negative word and speak life over yourself and your future, I want you to gently open the comment section and type, "I speak life over my life." Let that be your declaration, your agreement, your intentional act of aligning your words with truth, because when you put it into words, you reinforce it within yourself and begin to see its effect in your life. I continue to stand in this awareness that my words matter, that what I speak has direction, that what I declare has influence. I do not speak randomly. I speak intentionally. I do not speak from fear. I speak from faith. I do not speak from limitation. I speak from alignment. And as I continue to align my words with truth, I create an environment where life is released, where clarity is strengthened, where purpose is supported, and where every declaration I make moves me further into alignment with what God has already established for me. I become aware in this moment that my life is not isolated, that what touches me often attempts to touch those connected to me, that my family, my loved ones, and everything within my sphere carries value, purpose, and divine significance. And I refuse to allow anything harmful, anything unauthorized, anything misaligned to gain access to them. I step into a place of covering, not out of fear, but out of awareness, not out of anxiety, but out of authority. I recognize that protection is not passive. It is intentional. It is declared. It is established through alignment with God's presence and his promises. There are connections in my life that matter deeply, relationships that are part of my assignment, people who are part of my journey, and I do not take that lightly. I become intentional about how I pray, how I speak, how I think concerning them. I do not assume they are covered. I actively release covering. I do not wait for something to happen. I establish protection before anything attempts to arise. I become proactive. I become aware. I become aligned with the responsibility of covering what has been entrusted to me. The word reminds me in Psalm 91:11 that God gives his angels charge over me to keep me in all my ways, and I extend that understanding to everything connected to me. That means there is divine protection available. There is a covering that is already established. There is a guarding presence that surrounds, that watches, that preserves. And I align myself with that reality. I do not question it. I do not doubt it. I step into agreement with it, and I declare it over my life and over every person connected to me. I declare that no plan of harm will penetrate this covering. No hidden agenda will find access. No negative intention will succeed. I establish a boundary in the spirit, a line that cannot be crossed, a covering that cannot be broken. I release peace into my household. I release stability into every relationship. I release harmony into every connection.